Hi there. Welcome to Draw With Me. I'm Danny Gregory. It's Thursday. It's time to draw. It's time to be creative. It's time to pay attention to that part of us that maybe we have been neglecting all week, all year, or for many, many years, depending on your perspective. But it's time to get back into it. It's time to do some drawing. I see that a lot of you are here, ready to go. And I'd like to say hello to John Cromer. John, hello. To Cheryl, to Christine, to Lisa, to Karen, Rebecca, Myrna, Mitzi, and Magdalena. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Before we begin, I wanted to point out to you that right here is a URL. And if you type it into your browser, in a separate window, of course, you will be able to download the reference image that we'll be using today. If you don't, it's no biggie. It's no big thing because I'll be putting it up on the screen as well. But if you'd like to be prepared, print it out, laminate it, frame it, have it ready, that would be a good idea. You also should have some kind of a drawing implement. I'm going to be using this Winsor Newton fine liner, but you can use whatever you'd like. Some paper would be helpful too. So let's get on with it. Meanwhile, I'm going to say hello to some other folks, to Rennie and to Joy Marie, to Laura Ellen 12. Sounds like the name of a jazz group. Janice, Lisa, Chris Seidel, my friend. Emma and, well, this is so many of you, Thistle, of course. So thank you all for joining me, and thank you also for sending in your Oscars or for posting them in a place where we could find them. Last week was Oscar week, not the Academy Awards, something even more important. Namely, we celebrated Oscar Wilde and drew him, and that was a lot of fun. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for making some amazing art, and thanks for posting it so we could find it. If you're new to Draw With Me, that's how we start, with a look back at what we did the previous week. So what about this week? What are we going to do? Well, one of the things that we did do last week was I announced that I was going to give away my sketchbook, and I did. Well, I'm about to. I did a drawing in this beautiful The Gray book, appropriate because we were drawing the author of the Portrait of Dorian Gray. The Gray book by Hanamulla, and I did a drawing in it, and I'm giving it away. The whole sketchbook containing my drawing to those people who wrote in to ask for it, or one of them. Let's find out who it was that Twiglet picked. And it was very good. So here's the Gray book, and here is the name of the winner. Is it you? Maybe. Did you send me an email asking for this book? No? Then it's probably not you. But if you did, well, the probabilities are 1 in, I don't know, I think we got 11,762 emails. We stayed up night and day reading all of them. We crumpled them up and put them into that bowl, and Twiglet picked this one. Let's find out who it was. Rebecca. Rebecca, congratulations. Feel free to thank Twiglet for your copy of the Gray book, including my drawing and a little quote from Oscar Wilde. So I'll be firing that off to you. We used to go to the post office once a week, so it may take a little bit longer than instantly for you to get it. But in the meantime, start getting out your pens, your white markers, your white charcoal pencils, whatever it is you're going to use on a Gray book. where you can combine dark and light and use the gray as a midtone. So that is a lot of fun. All right, so let's get rid of this. And let's talk about what we're going to do today. It's going to be fun. So today is also the birth... Oh, wait, you know what I wanted to do? I wanted to read Rebecca's email. I happen to have a copy of it right here. Would you like to see it, read it, hear it, share it? Here it is. It has a picture, and it says, "Dear Mr. Gregory, while I find you honoring me today a bit mystifying, I am also humbled by the attention. Particularly amusing was your saying that today was my birthday, if I understood you correctly. According to Wikipedia, I was born October 16th, 1854. And of course, Wiki is never wrong about the facts. I hear posthumously that an actress and fan, Ms. Westberg, who performed in one successful play of mine, The Importance of Being Earnest, would dearly love a gray Hanamulla sketchbook." I like that she copied and pasted Hanamulla. Clearly she was struggling with the spelling and was probably unsure as to how to add an umlaut, possibly. "Sketchbook, though I can't imagine why. Gray paper looks like London's smoggy sky. Not a favorite view of mine. Above is her drawing of me. Poor dear. Since you have an interest in artists and writers, you might feature an acquaintance of mine of the finest ilk, Aubrey Beardsley. He has quite a trove of scandalous and frightening works. Best, Oscar Fingal O'Flaherty Wills Wild, transcribed by Rebecca Westberg." Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Rebecca, for transcribing this. I wonder what that means. Does that mean that he wrote it in quill and she typed it into the computer? Probably, right? Quill, dip pen. So a couple things about what Rebecca says here. One, let's take them in reverse order. Aubrey Beardsley. I love Aubrey Beardsley. I remember when I was a little kid, in the 60s, Aubrey Beardsley had this huge renaissance. You might remember it. Aubrey Beardsley was an illustrator in, I guess you'd call it the Art Nouveau period. And he was amazing, particularly with line. Died very young. My mother, being a lady of the 60s, was very into him. And I, in fact, still have his book somewhere. I should bring it out sometime and share it with you, of the drawings of Aubrey Beardsley. So, absolutely. I have to go back and look and see what I can learn from him, because in some ways he was sui generis. His stuff was so tight and so sharp and so great, but I'm sure there's stuff to be learning from him. The other question that Rebecca raises here is October 16th, 1854 was Oscar's birthday. It's true. So did I say that it was his birthday? I might have, because I'm tricky that way. But actually, I would suggest you go and look up what May 6th and Oscar Wilde have in common. Just type it into Google. Oscar Wilde, May 6th. See what comes up. Let me know, because it's true it wasn't his birthday, but it was a significant date to him anyway. And I'm surprised. He may not want to talk about it. That's why I didn't mention it in this transcribed email. But the fact is, it was a pretty significant date, old Oscar, and you know damn well what it was about. So anyway, yes, congratulations. Hey, there's another Danny Gregory in the audience. It's true, and I'm from England as well. You seem to be a more handsome version of Danny Gregory, so congratulations on that. This is what the kind of old leathery version of Danny Gregory looks like. Yes, so congratulations, Rebecca. And let's talk about today. So today is actually the birthday of someone. It is the birthday of George Braque. Do you know who George Braque was? Well, let me tell you. I'm sure you do. This is George Braque. So George Braque was a 20th century artist, born in the 19th century. But he, today would have been his birthday. But George Braque was significant also because, of course, he, with his buddy Pablo, invented Cubism. And, Cubism is a really important phenomenon in 20th century art. What do we know about it, though? I don't know an enormous amount about it. I know what a cubist painting looks like. Certainly that term, cubism, has been around forever, but what does it actually mean, and what's it got to do with us? Well, cubism is interesting, first of all, because it's about, in some ways, it's about photography. And a lot of times here, we end up drawing from photographs just simply because that's what we want to have a common subject, so we use photographs. But, I'm always talking about my ambivalence about drawing from photographs, and I think both Picasso and Braque and other guys at the time had a similar, similar questions about photography and what was its impact on art making, and did it make artists obsolete, and how we'd interact with it. So Cubism was one solution to that, which is to say, could you create images that perhaps the camera couldn't take, but also they were, I think, investigating how we look at things and how our eyes track around things when we look at them. That we look, unlike a camera, which focuses on a single thing and creates an image, we're always looking and moving our eyes and looking at things from different angles. And things that we draw are often affected by time. Unlike a camera that takes a picture in 1,000th of a second, let's say, we might spend 20 minutes, we might spend an hour doing a drawing, doing a painting, we might spend months doing it. So time becomes part of the image that we're creating. It becomes a variable in it. How do you reflect that? How do you show that? And that is, I think, those two elements, that we are living, breathing, changing witnesses, observers, combined with the fact that images are made over time, and that over time things change. We change. We as art makers change. We as observers change. And the things that we're making art about change. So, I think Cézanne was one of the first people to really think a lot about that. And, there are still lifes that he did, which when you look at them, you think, there's something strange about this, sort of unsettling. I'm not sure what the perspective is, because in fact, the picture plane seems to shift. And it looks like you're looking at some things from above and some things from the side. Some things seem to be lit differently than the things right next to them. He introduced that kind of thought into it. And it's something that I think we can think about, even if we may not be interested in making cubist images. We can still think about how that affects us and what difference it makes to the images that we do make. That when we sit down to draw something, are we considering those things? The fact that we are engaging with it in a changing way, the fact that the thing itself is changing. And so often, particularly when we're starting to draw, we think that the goal is to create something that is perfect, that looks exactly like the photograph. I probably talk about this at least once a week in Draw With Me. I'm always talking about this sort of obsession of mine with trying to diminish the impact that photographs and photographing images and its perfection have on us as artists. That's not the test of whether the art we're making is good, which is not a great word, or is even authentic, which is a much better word. Authentic to our experience in making it, our experience as observers. So, this is what we're going to do today, is going to be a way of testing that. I have to tell you, I spent a lot of time, exactly how could we make, to collaboratively together, how could we make a cubist image without it being contrived? I mean, it is inherently contrived, but you know what I'm saying. It didn't come to me easily. Maybe you art teachers out there know how to do this. I kind of made it up. All right, so here's what I did. I took this picture of George Braque, but actually I took a bunch of pictures of George Braque. So there's a lot of photographs of George Braque that are out there. He's kind of a much photographed guy. He's a famous artist. And a lot of pictures taken him. He's kind of an interesting looking person. So, I thought, okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all these pictures of him. I mean, they're all kind of taken roughly at the same time, right? Don't you think? They're all taken, he's obviously probably within the same decade. He has similar hairstyles. He likes that neckerchief, wears it quite often. So I took all these pictures and I decided that I would make this out of it. So this is, it's just random bits of him, kind of as if we were sitting with him. Over the course of time, as we were observing him, we might be looking at these different parts of him. Sort of cubist looking, I guess, right? Do I have a cubist picture here I could show you? Let's have a look at... No, I thought I did, but I don't. And I'll be honest, while I like Braque, I much prefer a Picasso. This is a Picasso, and it is, it's of Vuillard, who was one of the kind of big collectors. This guy Vuillard it's all over the place. Everybody was drawing him. They probably hoped that he would buy their paintings if they painted him. But anyway, so this is a Picasso version of a Cubist picture. So there you have it. All right, so that's what we're going to do. Enough made up art history from somebody who knows nothing about art history. And let's get on to just doing some drawing, all right? So let me get this gray book out of here. Did I actually? Yes, I did. I have this. Let's draw on this. Get some paper out here. Draw on that. Okay, so so there's the picture. And you can decide what you're going to do with it. What are you going to do? I have mine printed out. So I'm going to put mine right next to my page to draw with. And start thinking about, what are you going to do? How are you going to do this? Because I want you to think about your own experience and what are you going to do that represents your version of this phenomenon that these cubists were investigating with this method. What were they trying to get at, these guys? And, I think that a lot of times, if you started to draw somebody, the way that I like to work, and this is just probably kind of my thing, is I might just focus on an area like this. I might just focus on this area of his ear if I was going to draw him. And then, I might suddenly get distracted and I might say, I really like his finger. I like the way that's posed. So I'm going to start looking at drawing that. Kind of bent finger. But you might have a different approach. You might say, that's not how I would look at it. I would do some kind of overall thing. Or you might say, I'm kind of intrigued by all these little boxes. And so that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to focus on the fact that this image is broken down into boxes and squares. And I'm going to approach it, like a grid. Or maybe you want to enhance that grid. And say, I'm going to make it even more pronounced. Look at what Picasso had done. He added this whole other kind of almost graphic design thing, this overlay of shapes on top of those kind of little triangles. I'm not even sure what he was doing there. I'm lost a bit here. Okay. Yeah. Because one of the things that I like about doing a drawing like this is also that it is easy to lose yourself in it. To realize, I don't really know what I'm drawing right now. I'm just kind of drawing these lines that are connecting. I'm hearing a lot of people saying that they don't know how to draw hands. And I think that stems from this kind of problem of how do you draw hands? By not thinking about them as hands, I guess. They're just weird shapes combining in such a way that you can draw with them. or pick your nose with them. But they're just a bunch of shapes. They're not something to be scared of. And also now I'm going off on like another tangent. Well, not just in what I'm saying to you, but also this image is full of tangents. You start on one thing and then suddenly it intersects something else, and it becomes another shape, another part, and then sometimes it gets fragmented and breaks down from the smooth line that you expect to see. It becomes something else altogether. And that's a good experience to have, because if you can get used to that, if you can get used to the fact that sometimes when you're drawing something, it surprises you and isn't what you thought it was going to be, but you're okay with that, you can handle it, then that means that you can really find yourself in any kind of a drawing situation and feel cool with it. It's not going to throw you because you say, wait, it's a hand, or oh no, he got up and he crossed his leg and now he's looking in a different angle than he was before. All those kinds of things that invariably happen when we're drawing and that can really throw us off, those are things we can train ourselves not to worry about or not to be thrown by. You can almost like segment your brain so you can draw George Braque while you're live streaming on YouTube, as I am, or while you're thinking about laundry, as you might be, or whatever it is you're doing. I'm sure you're doing more than one thing right now. You're digesting your breakfast, maybe. He has a good sort of piercing look. He has this sort of like... It's an interesting thing about artists, we rely so much on our eyes. Do they reflect that when you look at an artist's eyes? Are they particularly intense? Or tired from having looked at too much stuff really, really carefully, really intensely? Maybe so. The bulging eye muscles. Why not, right? I mean, if you were a professional runner, you'd have big leg muscles, so why can't we as artists? I knew you were an artist. I could tell by those giant irises of yours. What's also interesting about this for me right now, as I'm thinking about it, is it becomes kind of like almost a page of doodly stuff. Like, I'm going to draw a bunch of eyes on my sketchbook page. But then they're also going to cohere into a single image, which I think is probably much more interesting than just having a random page of bits. That's part of what we're trying to do, is how do we cohere these into a single image, a single visual experience for whoever's looking at them, so they say, yeah, I'm seeing a whole thing. It's not just bits, it's not just parts, it's a whole that is greater than. You might also have to make a decision about what is this approach that you're making to your actual drawing. Are you going to get into the tone? Are you going to use color in some way? And this is a black and white picture, but you could certainly decide to add color that you've created on top of it. This is also an opportunity to say, like, what are the things that make Braque distinctive? Like, for instance, right now I'm drawing this lock of hair that he has, The man had a nice, fine head of hair, white hair, nice and healthy looking, lots of it, he said enviously. But yeah, so you might say, you know what, if I was to meet George Braque, what are the things that I would notice about him? Well, he has an intense stare, so that's going to be part of the things that I'm observing about him that I'm going to focus on. He has nice hair. He has kind of a prominent nose. He has these elegant, shapely fingers. So those are parts of my impression of him. You know, that he isn't necessarily, you know, that I may not, if I'm just looking at him, I may not observe a lot of things about his face. There may be parts of his head that I just don't really care about. I'm not that interested in. So those are not the parts that I'm focusing on. But, you know, what are those parts? And those might be the parts that you include, and then you could leave out other stuff. And what would that mean? Would that help to identify him? Would it help to capture your experience of looking at him? Even if it didn't, you know, even if you'd left out bits about him, so what? Would that be a problem? Or would it be actually an opportunity to make an even cooler, more accurate drawing? Because, you know, it's like exhaustive detail isn't necessarily the key to truth and accuracy, right? If I told you everything I did today and kind of gave everything I did equal weight, you know, and I was like, well, I got up, I had breakfast, I took a shower, I got dressed, I picked out a pair of pants I wanted to wear, my next door neighbor shot his dog, and then I listened to an album on the radio, and then my mother called to say that she was moving to Africa, and then I decided to wear a different pair of shoes. That's not how it works, right? You don't make all your observations have equal weight. So why should that be true in your drawing? You have to have something you want to say by doing this drawing. You know, you have a story to tell. Your drawing is going to tell a story. So what are the parts of the story that matter to you? That is something that we need to train ourselves to think about, to pause and say, okay, why am I drawing this? What do I like about this? What is interesting to me about it? What's unusual? What do I want to convey? What do I want somebody looking at it to take away from it? And to say, oh yeah, now I get why he was looking at that. Or that's interesting. I never noticed that about him or about the subject. Or he's real insight into that. And I'm not just talking about a caricature. That's although that is certainly something like that, something like what I'm talking about. It's a caricature is about the artist prioritizing certain elements, sometimes in a mocking way, you know, exaggerating way. But you don't have to exaggerate to do what I'm talking about. You can simply, instead of exaggerating, you can omit. You can decide that I'm going to leave that stuff out to highlight the things that do matter to me. Okay. I like how many thumbs he has. Here's another one showing up. Didn't even know that it was a thumb. You know, I think that's again part of this process is to say I am seeing things without labeling them, which is so important. I've certainly talked to you about that before, about the importance of not limiting the things you see to your preconceptions of what they should look like, but instead observe them afresh and make new observations about them, new decisions, as opposed to just using the same old tired ways of representing things. Because if you're just providing shorthand and cliches, then I'm not that interested in looking at what you're making. You don't really have anything new to say about it. So instead, it would be much better if you really thought of something new to say, or saw something new. We love novelty. It's like a key part of art and creativity is to make something that hasn't been seen before. You know, that can become a burden, but I'll tell you what the solution to it is. The solution is for you to be freshly stimulated and excited by whatever it is you're doing. So even if you're doing something that's been drawn or painted a gazillion times before, oh, not another Christ on the cross. Oh, no, not another naked schnauzer. No, instead what you're doing is you're saying, this is what interested me about this. And I've never really looked at this way. And so it's your perception that is fresh. It's not the subject matter. You don't have to worry about, oh gosh, this has been done a million times. That's not the point. You haven't done it. And if you have done it a million times, then yes, get a new subject or see it in a new way or get some new media and play with them so that you are challenged. Because if you're bored, I can tell. If you're cranking out yet another set of soup cans because you know that some collector is going to buy them, yeah, not going to be that into it. But if you're doing something that really excites you, that you're passionate about, great. I was reading this book this morning about passion. Did you know the word passion originally meant suffering? Right? The passion of the Christ. That's what you call it when you see an image of Christ on the cross. The passion of the Christ. The suffering. That's what passion was. Suffering. And then I think it kind of morphed into intense feelings. Intense feelings. And then eventually it became intense interest, intense likes. That's the things that we're passionate about. So, but core to it is the feeling, this feeling of like, this really matters to me. And if it really matters to me, it's going to really matter to you. I'm going to show you why it matters to me. And even if the thing doesn't matter to you, the viewer, you don't really care about naked schnauzers, but you say, boy, I'm really compelled by his interest in it, right? Haven't you ever had that experience? You watch a documentary about some arcane subject and you go, like, gosh, I never thought I was going to be interested in that, but it was a really interesting film. Why was it an interesting film? Because this filmmaker was really interested in it and really conveyed that interest. So, that's, again, what we have to do. Whereas if you're conveying, oh my gosh, this is terrible, I'm so awful at this, but I really should draw hands. I don't know if I want to see that you're drawing. It's just not that compelling. So I've kind of covered all the parts of this photograph, but now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some gray. So I'm not going to necessarily do the whole thing in cross-hatching. Just going to hit it up with a little bit of gray. Ecoline marker, brush pen. Just put in a little bit of tone. Because there are areas of this that are just undifferentiated tone, and I don't feel like drawing thousands of lines of cross-hatching to fill them in, so I'm just going to add a bit of tone of my own. A tone of my own. Are these markers the same color? My God, they are. Using these two markers, they're both 717 brush pens. Now that is just carelessness. It's like, no wonder they're not that different. Because they're not. They're the exact same one. Let's bring in this guy instead. There's some things that happen here quite fortuitously, like here, the base of his palm totally met with his chin underneath. Almost by accident. Was it accidental? No, of course, I carefully planned that, but, it can appear accidental if you lie about it, like I am. Artists lie, and they tell the truth. You can quote me on that. You can embroider that on a t-shirt if you like. If you like embroidered t-shirts, and who doesn't? I recently got an embroidered t-shirt. I'll have to maybe wear it sometime in the future so you can tell me whether you like it. It has flowers embroidered on it, so it's a little, girly, but whatever. I'm in touch with my girly side. We're reaching that point where I say, you know what, I could keep doing this forever, but I need to drink some iced coffee. John Cromer makes a good point. I can't wait to see all the different drawings that will come out of this. It's true. It's true. Can't wait to see what you've done with it, and more importantly, forget all those other people. It's just you and me. What are you going to do? And are you going to share it with me? Do you think Pablo Picasso would be streaming on YouTube if he was alive today? He was kind of a ham. I could imagine him doing it. I'm not equating myself with Pablo Picasso, so, you don't have to worry about that. I do have delusions of grandeur, but there are limits to them. Yes, see, my wife's bringing it up already. It's true, Yes, so there seems to be a consensus that actually Picasso would be on TikTok, probably. It's true. I'm old school. I'm only on YouTube and on Facebook. I need to get hip, man. Now, if I was to do Draw With Me on TikTok, wouldn't it have to be really fast? I'd have to knock out a drawing. I know that. Is there a time limit? I think there's sort of a time limit on TikToks. Certainly there's a time limit for people's patience when it comes to TikTok. So I have to draw even faster than I already do. Speaking of which, I think we're done. I think I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to turn off the reference. Now you can. This is kind of cool because it's sort of fragmented. Let me see if I can make it even more fragmented. No. Yes, this is even more fragmented. You see, kind of cool. Maybe I need to make myself even more fragmented. Can I do it? Huh? At least I'm black and white now. Anyway. But that was, yes. So doing this, yeah, fragmented, fragtard. Pretty cool. I'm pleased with that. And it is, it's time to stop. I wanted to make a couple of brief announcements just because, that's my thing. So I wanted to just mention to you, in case you just wandered into this and you're like, what? I love Cubism. This guy is a genius, or possibly this guy's an idiot. What is he talking about? Either way, you might want to know more and see more things that I make and do. Why not? But first of all, I want to see the things that you make or do. So I want you to take a picture, a nice clean picture, not like at an angle with your dog's leg in the way and your dirty laundry in the background. A nice clean, well-lit picture of what you've taken and post it on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok if you want to. Maybe Picasso will see it. Or in the schoolyard, and put this tag on it, SBS Draw With Me, so we can find it and we can celebrate it next week. Oh yeah. This morning I sent out a reminder to everybody who texts with me. Might have annoyed them. I tried not to do it too early. To say, hey, want to draw with me? Here's a direct link to it. But there's other things that I do on text too. I share dad jokes. I show pictures of other stuff that I think is cool, or that I've made and I think is cool, or that I've made that I don't think is cool. And you can text me back, and people do all day long. People are just incessantly texting me with their opinions, their news, and I'm glad of it. Don't get me wrong. I'm just a little choleric today. So, sign up. Just all you have to do. You can only do it if you're in the United States or Canada, but you can text me. I know you've heard me do this before, talk about this before, this texting thing, and you haven't done it. You haven't signed up for it. You don't know what you're missing. Might be just as well, but today's the day. I'm not going to come and bother you. Although I have to say, I did go to sketchbook school student's house as a surprise visit this week and gave her a book. My wife and I drove over to her house, rang the doorbell. Her husband showed up at the door and he said, "What is it?" And I was like, "Do you own a set of encyclopedias?" And he was like, "What?" And I said, "Sorry, is your wife here?" And he went and got her and we gave her a book. She was very gracious. Okay, you can email me, but that's old school. You don't need to do that. You can do that next week when I give away something else. I'm going to be giving something else away, and if you want it, you can email me there. But more importantly, this is one of the few points of contention in my household, is the Art for All podcast. I make this podcast every week. Every week I make a podcast. I write it, I perform it, I sing it, do all the stuff. And you probably don't listen to it. And guess what? My wife doesn't listen to it either. She hates podcasts. I don't really understand it, but she hates podcasts. And whenever I'm working on the podcast, she'll say, "The podcast, really?" And I say, "Yes, because you are going to listen to it and you're going to love it." But so far, you haven't been listening to it and you haven't been loving it. So if you want to give me a small leg up on my brilliant wife, subscribe to the podcast and tell me how great it is. You could write to me at drawwithme@sketchbookschool.com and say, "That podcast, that was totally worth being late for dinner for. You should do it again next week," and I will. Oh yes, I also write an essay. I'm going to be sending one out tomorrow morning. I send it out every Friday. Every Friday. Every Monday, podcast. Every Thursday, draw with me. Every Friday, I write an essay and I send it out. Why? Because I haven't been able to go before the parole board yet. But one of these days I will, and then I'll be released from this lifelong sentence of compulsively making things on Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Who knows, my sentence might be extended, and I might have to start making things on Tuesdays and Wednesdays too. You never know. But until then, there's all these things. And if you don't consume them, why am I making them? I'm not making them for me, God knows. It's actually not true. I'm entirely making them for me, and I don't, you can just ignore all of them. It's fine. I just like talking about them, and I like making them. So there you have it. All right, thanks for indulging me. And I should go. My cup is almost empty. I've done this spectacular frame-worthy drawing here of George Braque, father of Cubism, or uncle of Cubism, depending on your perspective. One for the archives. Thanks for joining me. Can't wait to see what you've made. Can't wait to see you again next week. It's been fun. And if you're in Spark, I'll see you in the after party in 11 minutes. See you then.